Joel, how are you, man?
Gents, how is life? How is life? I'm doing great, man. I really, really am. I have been traveling for the past couple of weeks.
Mhm.
I was at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, Alabama, which was a great experience. And then me and the guys from Roundtable, we were actually at the Super Bowl, which is dope.
Mm.
Um, just for media portion, we didn't stay for the game, but overall it was a fantastic experience. And the only thing that would have made it better was obviously if, of course, my Buffalo Bills were there. But super cool, man. And I'm glad to be back in the office. And I'm really even more excited just to start diving into some more off-season stuff.
Oh yeah, and I saw you got a new truck,
I did,
2024.
dude. I did, man. I did. I wanted to go ahead and spoil myself a little bit. And so I was between that or a Tacoma. But then
Mhm.
that one sales guy just talked me into it. It's beautiful. It's a nice GMC Canyon. Some all-terrains on that bad boy.
Oh
Four
yeah.
by four. It's oh my god, bro. And
Oh
so it
yeah,
gives you a
that
chub
thing
just
looked
looking at it.
awesome. It looked
Oh
great.
yeah,
And
yeah.
my one thing I wanted to talk to you about was how was the Super Bowl? Because you guys got to interview all the players. I saw
Yeah.
you and Richie on TikTok, multiple
Yeah.
videos. TD, I saw everyone. So how was that experience for you guys?
Dude, it didn't feel real. It still doesn't feel real, even now being back, but it was, like, super cool. Like, one thing I have to do is give a giant shout out right to the NFL for how they treat media.
Mhm.
So, we get there, and the first place we showed up was to pick up our credentials, and then we go into this giant area of this convention center. It's called Radio Row, and, like, you start walking around Radio Row, and, like, you see the live set of Pat McAfee, like, he's doing a show right in front of my face. 5 feet down, like, you see Kay Adams doing Up and Adams. 10 feet down, like, you see Good Morning Football doing their show. Like,
Wow.
you see Colin Coward walking around, like, you see Nick Wright walking around, players all over the damn place. It was, hard to swallow
Mhm.
because I had to, like, remind myself, I was like, "I need to, like, maintain some sort of professionalism. I can't be fanboying right now and asking for, like, pictures and, like, talking to people." But, insane, insane. So, like, that was Radio Row, and then on Monday night, we ended up going to Super Bowl opening night where they had all of the media out on the field,
Mhm.
where they had about like 10 separate podiums spread across the entire field on one sideline and the other. That was insane
Oh
as
yeah.
well. Like just trying to fight with media members to try to go ahead and get questions in on some of the players that were out there. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, we would just go to the actual team's hotels. Some of the players were easier to talk to than others just based off of how popular they were.
Mhm.
But I mean, really, overall, man, super, super exciting. We're waiting to hear back on whether or not that we were approved for the combine.
Ooh.
So hopefully that's a similar experience, but to say that it's anything like the Super Bowl was a wild event.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, just to think about like even 2 years ago where Roundtable Sports was, now it's
Yeah.
like its own news, like it's ridiculous. You guys have grown a lot.
Yeah, no, man. Thank you so much. Like we always try to remind ourselves that it's still only the beginning. Like we like to wake up in the morning and say, "Hey, it's day 1 right now."
Yeah.
So, hopefully we'll be able to continue to give you guys some really awesome ass content, just moving forward, but so far we are certainly blessed with the opportunities we have had this year. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's a great mindset for sure. Last time we had you on, it was right before week 2, where we're not really going to get into that, but
Yeah.
it was a rough game for me and
Yeah.
and just my mental for like the next 4 weeks while Tua was hurt.
No, I
It
get
was
it.
it was not a very enjoyable experience watching the Buffalo Bills just beat us down at home.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a rough time, but I mean, as you said, obviously you want the Super Bowl more than anything, but Josh Allen did get the MVP. What was your immediate reaction to hearing that?
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, so it sort of felt like a consolation prize,
Mhm.
right? So it sort of like felt like a severance package, right? Like basically like you like work like this high paying job, but like you get fired, but they're like, "Oh, but here's your severance package. We're paying you $50,000." So that's cool. It was nice, man. Like I've always thought that his MVP was certainly important because God forbid that this Bills team never does win a Super Bowl while Josh Allen is here.
Mhm.
Like when I'm older and I'm trying to explain to my kids how great like he was at the game, and like he had nothing to show for it, and that was including like no accolades.
Mhm.
I thought that it was super cool, right? And it's obviously heavily debated between him and Lamar Jackson, but in my opinion, I will die on the hill. I genuinely believe that the most valuable player needs to be looked at by who brings the most value. It doesn't necessarily mean like who puts up the largest numbers, because if that was the case, then we could have said that Allen and or Dak Prescott should have gotten the MVP in 2023 if we're just looking at numbers alone. So it was cool. It's nice. But I'll tell you what, man, it was just so soon after we lost another heartbreaker against Kansas City that I really didn't celebrate as much as I thought that I would have.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
I agree with you. Where I think the best statistical season should be the APs. I mean, it's called the
Yeah.
most valuable player.
Exactly.
Landon, what was your immediate reaction too? Because I know you're
Josh
pretty
winning
hyped.
MVP. Yeah, it was pretty sweet to see, just because, like, I feel Josh has deserved it for a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, we would have so much rather been in the Super Bowl than winning MVP. It would have been.
Yeah.
So it was something that I think that he could put on his resume. And I also think that that's going to add fuel to the fire, because I think that Josh Allen is going to get a massive extension this offseason, because his guarantees run out in 2026. And based off of how Brandon Beane likes to structure his contracts, he likes to get his star players done early. So that way he doesn't go out and ball again, where we owe that man like $700 million or something like that. But I do think that Josh probably around after the draft, maybe early May, like we're going to start getting like breaking news that he was extended, and now he'll be again as a top 3 highest paid QB in this league coming shortly. So,
Oh yeah. And where do you see his future contracts? Because like, do you think he's going to be around that 50 million, or do you think he's going to be closer to 60?
it's funny, right? Because when you look at all these quarterback contracts, like there was at least 4 quarterbacks this previous offseason that had a short time at being the highest paid quarterback in the league, right? Like one of them like was the highest paid for a day until that next contract ultimately ended up beating them. It's tough because I also try not to be naive, and I understand people are like, "Oh no, like Josh Allen, he loves Buffalo, man. Like he would definitely take a pay cut." But at the end of the day, like I always like to remind myself that as much as Josh does love the Bills, as I'm sure that he does, it's really a job to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Buffalo Bills are his employer. And when it comes into the best opportunity for his family, he's 110% going up to bat so that he can like be that highest paid QB. I think that Brandon Beane is going to try and make a pretty significant gap so between him and second place. But really at the end of the day, it's not really going to be that much of the end of the world, because it's probably going to get beaten the next following offseason, or maybe even directly after he is paid.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking he'll be close to around $60 million a year.
Yeah. And that's not even that crazy, because like I think Trevor Lawrence is making 59 million or something close
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. Like that's nuts
Yeah.
that Lawrence is
It's
making
money
that
he
kind of
shouldn't
money.
have.
Yeah, no, man. Like it's basically, so it's the market, right? And like all of these quarterbacks who are in line, it's not about the best performances, but it's more about, okay, who's good enough to start? All right. Like who's good enough to be a starting quarterback in this league? Let's go ahead and make him the highest paid, because quote unquote, that is the market. And that's why all of these quarterbacks in the league have like this false sense of their value. But in reality, like Lawrence did not deserve that contract.
Mhm.
Like he deserves like Baker money.
Mhm.
And so I would say, but yeah, I could probably see Josh like be around $63-65 million on an AAV scale.
Yeah. And the Bills have a couple crucial people that I feel like they need to resign. One's like a Ty Johnson, where I think he balled out this year. How do you guys feel about them resigning? Like, I think Rasul Douglas is up for contract. Guys like that. Like, there's a couple of names that I can think of. What are some names that you guys can think of that like the Bills need to resign this year?
Mac Hollins.
Yes.
Not Rasul. Not Rasul. I don't want.
No.
Rasul he was such a liability this year. I like him as a person. He's a great guy, but like, there's a point where we gotta
move on.
Yeah, we move on there. So I think like this year with the Bills, like we're in a much better financial position than we were last year, but we're still pretty tight. I'd probably have to agree that Matt Collins would be one of the only ones that I'm really pounding the table to resign just because of his culture fit. And him and Josh Allen have really established a hell of a lot of chemistry, right? Like he is incredible on special teams. Nobody talks about his contribution there. And he has proven that he can step up in the clutch. I'm a big Matt Collins guy. Like Ty Johnson, I would love to if we could potentially work it out. Like I was always joking around that we had the best RB3 in the NFL because he was out there making plays when we didn't. I'm not too pleased with Ray Davis's like rookie season production. I thought it was really inconsistent. So I think Ty Johnson might make sense, but it really depends on what his contract and what he's going to be asking for. I wouldn't see it being more than like a few million a year, if that. But for the most part, man, like all of those free agents, like Rasul, for example, I'm fine with him walking. And so I think that we could find some younger talent in free agency, some draftees that are also very intriguing to look at as well. But right now, like, and the only one that stands out to me as a must is Matt Collins.
I mean, this might be this is unpopular take with people on Bills fans on Twitter for sure, but I do want Damar Hamlin back just for his contribution on special teams. Would be very good, and plus Taylor Rapp gets hurt a lot. You don't know how Bishop's going to be early, so having a guy who's played in the system before. I mean, not at a super high level, but he's a solid player. So and say you want to run like a safety blitz or something, sub Damar and let him get after the quarterback.
So I'm going to tell you what about Damar Hamlin, right? Like, I think it is goofy when people overhate him. I think people haven't forgiven him for that fake punt in the playoffs a couple of years ago, and they just attach that to his name where they can't admit that he actually played quality football this year. Everybody and their mother, like all season long, was saying, oh, man, why isn't Mike Williams starting at free safety? He should have been the guy out there from the beginning. Well, not Mike Williams, Mike Edwards, excuse me, right before he was ultimately cut. And the reason why that he was not starting over Damar Hamlin was because Damar Hamlin beat him out. Like, he beat him out. He was the better player. There's like this crazy like theory that people think that Sean McDermott is afraid to do bad things to Damar Hamlin because of what happened to him a couple of years ago, or that he plays favorites. That's dumb. No, not at all. Like, Sean McDermott is going on ahead and he is picking the best possible player at that free safety position. Now, I will backtrack, and I think that we can improve as far as a starter, right? I'm fine with keeping Damar Hamlin on as depth, just because of his familiarity with the system. But I would agree that I would love for him to be back on this squad. But as far as a replacement, like, we need a free safety.
Yeah.
Like, we need a dude that's out there that excels in coverage, like a true ball hawk sort of guy. A few guys in the draft I really, really like. I'm happy to come back on once it gets closer to the draft so we can like pinpoint some prospects for the Bills and the Dolphins. Don't worry, bro. I got you. And yeah, man. I mean, as long as it makes financial sense, yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. And I especially think Gabe Davis is one guy that I really think stepped into the role like or not Gabe Davis, sorry, Matt Collins. Well, yeah, he played like Gabe Davis though. Like same jersey number. They play the exact same physical type of way. And I really like Matt Collins. He was a Dolphins receiver 2021, 2022. Sometime back around that era. But yeah.
2022 he was on the
he was a dog though. Like he's a great guy.
Yeah. Oh no, dude. Listen, I love his personality, like his whole like shoeless shtick and stuff. Y'all ever see his TikToks?
Yeah.
His TikToks are not football related at all. Like, he just does like how-to videos of like random ass shit like all the time. It's like his personality is really, really cool, and I think it's good for the locker room. But it's funny when it comes into this offseason because I feel like a lot of people will say, oh yeah, like we want this receiver, we want that receiver. I'll be completely honest with you, man. Like, what the Bills were able to do this year, by creating the most successful and statistically efficient offense in franchise history and finish the season, playoffs included, as the highest scoring offense in all of the NFL with the supporting cast that we had, right? I think that our number one focus has to be bolstering the defense.
Yeah.
I will be pissed. Like, I just saw a rumor. In fact, I'm going to go on ahead and I'm actually going to stream on this here in a little bit about it. But like, I saw a rumor about how we could potentially be interested in Hollywood Brown, like during
I saw
free
that.
agency.
I saw that.
So don't waste money like on offense, because obviously what we're doing is working. If you're gonna go out and spend anything, spend draft capital, like fucking do whatever you can. I'm sorry for cussing. I'm allowed to do that on here, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you're,
no,
you're
yeah.
allowed.
My man. Fuck those picks and go get Myles Garrett. Like, that's what I have been saying
for
for the
sure.
past couple of weeks. Like, that's who I want. That's who I want to spend money on. Everything else, draft and find bargain bin free agents. Because obviously what we're doing on offense works, especially since Joe Brady is back for his third year.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the Eagles really, well, technically the Bucs too. They laid a game plan against Mahomes. The Eagles blitzed 0 times against the Chiefs, and they had a ton of sacks. It was Mahomes' career high. If you guys can build as like a real number one edge rusher alongside Greg Rousseau, and then maybe another D tackle or just a D lineman in general, I think if you could really build that D line, he's going to have a big problem.
Dude, it's important, right? Because we haven't had a edge rusher since 2013 get over 10 sacks. It's Mario Williams.
Yep.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We have not had a defensive lineman get over 10 sacks since 2013. Yeah.
That's insane.
So that's why, like, it blows my mind when people are just like, oh no, man, why are we giving up 2 first-round picks? I'm like, bro, like, how many times have we drafted an edge rusher in the past year? In the past years, expecting Myles Garrett sort of production. The only way to guarantee Myles Garrett sort of production is by trading for Myles Garrett. Like, there's no roll of the dice anymore. Like, we know that Brandon Beane's been struggling with his first-round picks for the past couple of years anyway. So screw it, bro. Like, send it off and get that guy on this roster as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah, I agree. I think you definitely need to build that defense because I'm very optimistic on Josh Allen in general. I mean, he doesn't really need anyone. He is the offense. Like, as long as they have a run game like what they had this year, Cook, Ty Johnson in them, like, I'm very, very confident Josh Allen could go out 40 touchdowns a season like he has been. I mean, if they could just build an elite defense like they used to have, I feel like 2021, they were towards the top. Like,
wouldn't that be nice?
Very scary Bills team.
Damn. Let's hope for the best there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, watching the Super Bowl, I didn't know that D linemen were allowed to pressure quarterbacks that much from watching the Bills. So.
Dude, you know what? It's funny how they just switched their allegiances over one game. You know, they're like, screw it. Well, it's funny because, like, when you watch the game, like, you saw that, like, phantom offensive pass interference. You remember that? So first drive where, like, A.J. Brown got called for a pass interference. But then afterwards, man, like, it's like they just shifted their allegiances almost immediately, and they just started screwing the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, all right, never mind. It's the Eagles' time now.
How much did you enjoy watching that Super Bowl?
So I'll be completely honest with you, man. I was watching it, but I wasn't watching it, right? So I had it on, and, like, I was watching, like, a couple of snaps here and there. And obviously I was, like, watching the absolute pressure, watching the Eagles just hand it to the Philadelphia Eagles. This was the last matchup I wanted to see. As much as I think all of America just did not want to see the rematch between Philadelphia and Kansas City.
Yeah.
But the few things I did see is that Phillies team's defense is going to be absolutely historic. It's going to go down in the history books. Like, I was looking at their lineup today while I was doing the huddle. And, like, when you look at all the talent that they have, specifically on the secondary side of things, like with Cooper DeJean, with Quinyon Mitchell, you have Darius Slay on the other side. I'd say probably the best cornerback room in all of the NFL. Quality safeties, solid defensive line, although that several of them are pending free agents. So I'm curious to see what Philly's going to do this offseason. it just goes to show you, man, like defense truly still does win championships. And if anybody has been asking that, like simply just look at that game we just witnessed and also look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl against Kansas City a couple of years ago. Defense still wins championships even in 2025.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Mahomes had pretty much nothing, like other than Worthy in garbage time. Like he really didn't have anything. It was 34-0, and Mahomes had like 50 yards. So that was in the third quarter too. It was like his worst game of his career. Sure.
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. I would say his second worst was against Tampa Bay. Was the exact same thing. Had crazy interior pass rush that was disrupting everything. And that's the most important thing that I think defenses need to prioritize is the trenches, specifically on the defensive side. If you have a quality pass rush, like your average, like secondary players are that much better, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because those wide receivers aren't going to be able to mature in their routes, and those plays aren't going to reach their final form. It was really a blueprint, and so to go out there and show what you can do against Kansas City, but as much as I would love to say that they're done and the dynasty's dead and they'll never be back, nah, I never count those fools out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I want to know what you guys feel. Say the Bills do go out and get either Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. How optimistic are you guys saying you're going to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs?
I mean, dude, I feel like I've been optimistic for the past 3 years, right? So I think it helps. So I genuinely think that it would help, like trying to do whatever you can by stealing a blueprint from a team that has been successful against our nemesis, if you will. I would have to wait and see. So I know for a fact that we'd absolutely beat the brakes off of them during the regular season like we do each and every single year. But when it comes down into the playoffs, it's an entire different season. And we're just going to have to see the status of our health, our injury report, like leading up into the game. I think the key for Buffalo to have success against Kansas City, and although that we lost to them 2 years ago at home, I think we need that damn 1 seed next year. Like 1 seed, from what I've been seeing, is really our only opportunity for us to make it to the Super Bowl. So that needs to be priority number 1, is doing whatever we can to build a team that's good enough to secure the 1 seed at hopefully a relatively early portion of the season and just go from there. But yes, a Myles Garrett would certainly make things interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to add on to the whole 1 seed thing, I went to every single home Buffalo Bills game this year, and we did not lose a single home game. The energy in that stadium every Sunday, Thursday, or Monday, it was unbelievable. I mean,
dude, it's a huge advantage for us, right? Like going undefeated at home is absolutely crazy. Last time we lost at home was against the Kansas City Chiefs right in the playoffs in 2023. So that has to be like we can't afford next year to go on ahead and like have like a 2-game stretch of stinkers, right?
Yeah.
Like us losing to Baltimore that badly, like in Baltimore, and then also losing to Houston, which I'm still pissed that we did. I don't know how we did.
It was a head coaching game.
It was head coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was coaching and stuff like that, but then
also crucial ups. It just wasn't. We did not play well.
Yeah. So it really just goes down into, can we stay healthy at the right positions, and can we bring in some pass rush? And then I really like where this team is going. And even if we didn't bring in Myles Garrett, like I'm still confident that with this team is still going to be like an AFC championship caliber sort of team. And maybe 1 year I don't know. So the ball falls our way and we actually end up beating the Kansas City Chiefs and go to the Super Bowl, but we'll see.
Yeah. Lastly, because we got probably like 5 minutes left, I want to talk to you about positional needs, because I've been thinking about this. In my opinion, from an outsider's perspective, it seems like you guys need D-line. I mean, maybe interior linebacker, some safety help would be nice. Raps played good. Well, let's go. I want you guys to go more in depth with it because I'm not really like on the Buffalo Bills wave. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, man. So starting off, I think edge is probably our biggest necessity.
Ooh.
And then I think a lot of us are on the same page where we know that we want Myles Garrett or we want Max Crosby or whatever, some sort of game wrecker. Defensive tackle, a true one tech is what I'm looking for. Like a big bodied guy that's going to eat up the run, that's going to draw doubles, that's going to open up opportunities for the rest of the defensive line. That's big. I don't think Daquan Jones is that guy anymore. I think that he has gotten out of his overall prime. So I think that we need to look into the draft, and there are a couple of prospects, second, third round, that I think Buffalo could certainly make a move for. CB2 is going to be something that's intriguing. We do have Jamarcus Ingram, who has played relatively well when he had like some of those limited opportunities in 2024 during the regular season, but I still think that we're going to try and address that, like maybe with a bargain bin sort of CB2. Like I'd say, for example, I would love Cortland Davis. I think he's a pending free agent out of Detroit, and I probably butchered his first name. I probably got his first name wrong, but it's
Carlton?
Davis out of Detroit. Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Carlton Davis. He would be interesting on the outside, and I don't think that he would be too expensive. More on the expensive side, I think DJ Reed from the New York Jets would be interesting too. I would welcome him with open arms, but we'll see how expensive that might be.
Byron
And then
Murphy.
free safety, like I said too.
Yeah, no, I agree. What about you? What do you think?
Obviously number one is defensive line. I mean, I think every year it's the same thing. No pressure in the playoffs. Can't get bring down a quarterback. It's the same thing every year. It's so annoying. So definitely edge rusher. Obviously Von Miller tearing his ACL in Detroit a few years back ruined. That was the downfall of our season. That's how our season started to end. And then Greg Rousseau he's not been a playoff performer in my opinion. I mean, it seems like when the lights are the biggest, he's nowhere to be seen. But at the same time, can you blame him when on the other edge, no offense to AJ Epinesa, but when you have AJ Epinesa rushing on the other edge for in a playoff game against a really good offensive line, that's going to be a problem. Interior D-line as well. I agree with the one tech. I mean, you have Ed Oliver, who's a small guy. Daquan Jones, definitely out of his prime now.
Yeah.
Definitely just a bigger guy who's there to stop the run, kind of like a Jordan. I mean, obviously not as good as Jordan Davis, but a Jordan Davis-like player.
Yeah.
Cornerback for sure. I mean, I'm all for getting rid of Rasul, letting him walk, just because I don't want to see another season of him starting. He really did kind of fall off towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
So definitely, I'd say look into free agency or maybe the future with a draft, because I mean, obviously a few years ago, we drafted Christian Benford in the 6th round, and Jamarcus Ingram was an undrafted free agent. So we can pick up a corner and make them a good player.
Yeah.
Taron Johnson was a 5th or 4th round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the thing about McDermott, and so I know that a lot of Bills fans are often critical about him. If there's anything that you could be extremely confident in with Sean McDermott is that his ability to develop secondary players, right? Like, look at Levi Wallace a couple of years ago, right? Like, he was a 7th round guy, and he was pretty serviceable for us on the outside. Look at Damar Hamlin, starting free safety this year. I thought he played pretty damn well. Really, whatever piece you put in that secondary, I trust Sean McDermott and his DB coaches to get the best out of any player that you put on the outside. So that's something to consider. And then last but not least, I do want some speed at the wide receiver position, but more so on the draft. Like, my favorite guy is Jalen Royals out of Utah State.
I was about to say that. Jalen Royals
he's a dog. Yeah, he's a dog.
I want him bad. I really
he'll probably fall like late 2nd. So like, not unless he has like some crazy combine or something like that, but I think that he'll probably end up falling like late 2nd. Like, really just a guy that can stretch the field vertically, because like we really didn't have like a big deep ball part of our game, but like we were top 5 in the league for deep ball attempts, right? But then like when you look at the like actual success rate, it was bottom 5 of the league. So that tells you that we just didn't have the personnel to succeed with that. So it's a lot to unpack this offseason, but I am so pumped to see what happens.
Yeah.
I really hope we get Jalen Royals because every year there's always a player I really want and we never get him. So
Yeah. Nah, man, he's a stud for sure.
Yeah, hopefully the Bills don't bust every pick and maybe send us
And the Dolphins
win. I don't know. I mean, we need all the help we can get right now. We're rocking with Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel again, so
run it back.
we need some help.
Run it back, baby.
Yeah, status quo. Dudley Duron keeps saying it. I completely agree with him. But thank you so much, Dan. We really appreciate having you on again.
Yeah, nah, man. Listen, like I said, happy to come on prior to the draft or after free agency. Just shoot me over at DM. Folks, subscribe to Turf Talk, the homies.
Yeah, thank you. And everyone subscribe to Dan Mitchell. If you haven't already, I'm sure you have. Yeah.
Thanks,
thank you so much. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to Dan, and we'll see you guys later.
Peace.
Peace.